Hello and welcome to week 3 of the Upsurge Minor League, where we bring you guys a matchup in the Baron division featuring the undefeated Akuma Blades taking on the undefeated Team Enigma Paradox. Somebody's O has got to go tonight, and we'll see who gets it done. My name is Tanner Metro, and today I am joined by Dia, our first time working together here on the broadcast, although you are a familiar face. How are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing well, and I'm happy to get to cast with you for the first time and also get to see one of these teams fall for the first time. Like you say, it's still early on in the season, so it's not necessarily the most impressive thing, but still, it is where we start to separate the wheat from the chaff. For those unfamiliar with the expression, it's to say who is strong, who is weak, and
Right.
to get two strong teams going head-to-head this early on, I think is going to be very, very exciting.
Yeah, and this, like you said, it really separates the bracket, right? You're only a couple weeks in, but you get to see two teams coming in, a fairly easy path. I think both teams only dropping one game, or I think both teams just dropping one game as far as series go. So looking incredibly strong. Obviously, the players looking strong as well. We talked a little bit before the broadcast, and coming into this one, something that we do have to address is Team Enigma Paradox. They are going to be forfeiting game 1 as they had a last-minute sub filling in, which could be kind of the X factor, right? It's now at this point, if you're Akuma Blades, you might not have really any information on this guy.
Yeah, and I mean, the nice thing is that for Akuma Blades, they actually have what I'll call an advantage going into this, and it's because of the way that their players like to actually itemize in draft phase. There's a lot of unorthodox picks that we've seen come out of Akuma Blades, and in best of 1 scenarios, those become even more valuable because these teams haven't played against each other before, and because Akuma Blades are going to be on red side, they're going to have last pick. I'm pretty scared if I'm coming to this as Enigma, because there's so much that you have to come back from. It's not just that game deficit, because best of 1's extremely volatile.
Yeah, best of 1. Yeah, it's like you said, volatile. You see it just across the board everywhere, right? So many teams can prosper in the best of 3s, the best of 5s, but when you're put in what could be a best of 1 situation, it obviously feels horrible. And I think there's been that what is it? The statistic going around about the blue side cannon minions being stronger than the red side cannon minions, and everybody now. I think the biggest thing that I've seen pop up is when people start to become coaches, they're realizing just how important blue side versus red side can be, and how much that does change up your draft. And as far as draft goes, we know for the Akuma Blades, these guys are going to be aggressive. One of the things that we talked about maybe being a bane here or a boon for these guys is they might work towards an all AD team, right? Their jungler likes to play AD junglers. Their mid lane likes to toss in those AD mid laners. We talked about the Graves popping up as far as priority goes, and also being a flex pick. But even in that sense, like I just mentioned, flex picks, right? Akuma Blades, these guys bring a handful of those across the board.
Yeah, and the flex picks are going to be super important. For those of you who maybe didn't catch that, that's a reference to the fact that we have a Graves mid player on the side of Akuma Blades, which I haven't cast before. I'm very excited to see, and clearly it has been working, because these teams, they are sitting at that 2-0 series wide piece a piece. And there's a lot of flex pick potential, but again, Akuma Blades, they're on the red side, and flex picks are not going to mean nearly as much when you're looking for that last pick counter pick, and that's the real skill gap that can come in the draft. Is, blue side tends to get a lot of these power picks, tends to get a lot of these flex picks, a lot of these very contested things, and it's really the onus is on Akuma Blades to make it worthwhile by counter picking. And I'm not sure if, say, something like an AP mid laner is going to be the perfect counter pick, if they're actually going to be able to pull that one out of the hat.
Yeah, and so speaking of picks, obviously we've done our research here, but there's a guy in this game, Bless Express. He's got, maybe you could call it a pocket pick for himself. You talked about it a little bit before the broadcast, but is that going to be one of those power picks we see? Maybe that Dr. Mundo making his way into that top lane to kind of propel this game number 1 if we don't see it banned?
Yeah, Dr. Mundo is going to be, I think, a really hotly contested pick, or at least one that is picked up in this first game by Team Enigma Paradox. And I'd expect that even though they have an E-sub, that their team composition doesn't actually change that much. We're going to pop into draft right now and get to find out whether that's true. But right now, with the Echo Band, this is another one of those picks that we see some carry be able to play a lot, and is technically a flex pick. I like the takeaway there, and right now it's going to be targeted bans. These teams have done their research.
Yeah, they have done their research, and Echo was one of those power picks also coming through. It's been seen a lot popping up in the mid lane. Obviously can be flexed to the jungle, and Lilia is not one that I was expecting, but it's just a strong pick overall. If you've been following League of Legends for the past few weeks, right, Worlds, Lilia has been so contested just as a whole. So Team Enigma Paradox gonna opt into taking that one away, make sure nobody will be on that power pick that sometimes gets flexed into lanes, and one that I guess I'm confused about it, but if you know Indo's champion pool like Akuma probably do, they take away the Shaco.
Yeah, and the Shaco ban is not something that we see super often. The Samira ban, on the other hand, makes a lot of sense out of Enigma Paradox. That is a game warping champion. I'm glad to see that taken away. And Akuma Blades responding with the Bard ban. I wonder who that could be for. On the spoiler, Bardo support on Team Enigma Paradox. I think that's a really strong takeaway, because we talked a little bit about this, where I feel like going into this game, Akuma Blades, they have a very strong, individually talented roster. They understand what they want to do, but they don't understand exactly who they want to play to on the map. Team Enigma Paradox don't have that problem. They know where their win conditions are, they know where they're comfortable, and that Bard is something that they're comfortable on. Being able to play bot side, weak side, get Bard roaming around, get a support roaming around the map to make impact in mid and top, that's where Enigma is comfortable. And if Akuma can counter that with a high pressure bot lane into this Senna, that's where I look to see them succeed.
Yeah, and speaking of high pressure, we've got Lucian locked in. This is, again, one of those flex picks where you don't necessarily see Lucian played too far down on the bottom side of the map, so I'm thinking probably going to go to Fluke in the mid lane, as it is one of his most played champions. But again, it could be flex across the board, right? If they're doing some wonky stuff off stream, maybe on a different account where they flex this Lucian up into the top lane, especially if you're not expecting that, could be strong to the Mundo, could be strong into the tanks that Bless Express typically gets put on. So we'll have to monitor where that goes. Is Hecarim going to be a lock-in? Now, this is one that I saw as kind of just a play around. Obviously, we've been seeing a lot of Hecarim jungle recently, just in the meta as a whole, and I think that could also be considered a top pick as far as flexing goes. So if you're based off of meta, then this draft is pretty telling: Lucian mid, Hecarim in the jungle. But because these aren't the pros, because it's in the top tier collegiate tier 1 League of Legends, I think it's really the world is their oyster with those two picks.
Yeah, I really like what you bring up about the Hecarim top, because like you said, it's not something that we see super often, but the chance for Hecarim to be flexed to the top side is going to bring a lot of utility to a team, going to get a lot more income, is something that we have to watch out for. And Enigma locking in the Shen pick there, I think is very telling, and it's because it comes with the Kindred. Right now, what Enigma have themselves is a very playback, a very outlast sort of composition. They're going to have plenty of damage with the Senna Kindred, who both get to supplement that AD carry role, and the Shen rounds them out really nicely. Already with a very strong identity is Enigma. And Akuma, they're still working this out. We don't know where that Lucian is going. It could be an aggressive bot lane. We might see a high pressure mid, but I'm not sure what Akuma want to do just yet. The identity for them is still very much up in the air.
Yeah, and I do like that we see a little bit of for Team Enigma Paradox, these guys, you need to give your Senna space, right? It's not that AD carry that is just going to be rapid fire, blasting everybody down. A little bit slower attack speed, just working on the chunk damage in the range, so you want to buy as much space as you can. And already a couple picks for Akuma might be able to slow that down, right? That Hecarim, regardless of where it goes in lane or in jungle, can reach out and touch that backline. Leona as well. So they're kind of working to, it seems like, shut down that Senna pick as a whole, but with a couple of marksmen for Team Enigma Paradox, you do have to be careful. As we jump back into the bans, the support pool going to be targeted yet again, and this is another pick that I saw down low for Bardo support was the Alistar, and it kind of threw me off because Bard is the enchanter support, right? It's they're the mage rather, and Alistar is complete flip of the script there, but it's one that he does play a lot. So to target that, take it away, I really like those two bans coming through. And then obviously the Orianna, just a really strong mid laner. You see the ball delivery already coming through in the Shen, and there could be more to follow. So Akuma Blades are just going to say no way, Jose.
Yeah, and it's also because somebody like Graham does really like to play these control mages. The Ahri being played 3 times already, I'm surprised we don't see taken away, because there's a very large chance that with the draft that Enigma already have themselves, they just want to draft that wave clear potential assassination type of style. And right now, with the Swain being grabbed up as well, I feel like Akuma still very much sorting it out, but the idea is here for what looks like a pylon composition. Leona, Hecarim, and Swain, very, very good at sticking on you, making sure that they can get on top of your squishies and are going to be put down by the Kindred to some extent. But if the game is even, this is actually a very viable strategy for the side of Akuma Blades to be able to shut down people like the Senna.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a composition where Enigma, again, they want to buy space, they want to buy time, have these longer team fights to allow their marksmen to pop off here. And you've got a couple of picks in the Swain, the Hecarim that are already going to be so incredibly healthy, and they want to fight right on top of you. You standing inside of these guys as they're team fighting, it's only going to make them stronger. So I like those two picks coming in, as the Nautilus is going to be the supplementing support down there for the Senna. Nautilus, it's basically, hey, let's protect Senna. We've got Senna, now we have Cassio on top of it. I really, really like this, right? A lot of the times you see Senna compositions fall a little flat because you just put a lot of eggs in the Senna basket. Well, now you have the Cassiopeia on top of it. And that is one of the champions who arguably is my favorite, because you can literally click on the fountain and then just spam Twin Fangs on somebody, and it's just going to constantly orb walk for you. It takes all of the kiting out of the mechanics, and you can do it all yourself. Now, granted, that's not the right way to do it, but that is a way to do it. Exactly.
That it's the possibility that's there. I love the Cassiopeia lock-in and the Lulu lock-in. I want to confirm that, but just by double checking on the client, even looks a little bit strange here. I think this is a Lulu mid into the Cassiopeia.
Yeah. Oh, so this is strange because just recently Lulu was played in the top lane and it didn't go too well, right? I think it was Team Liquid who flexed that up into the top lane, and I don't know if that's necessarily the play into the Shen, if that is the case. But we talked about flex picks and we talked about kind of being wonky for the Akuma Blades. This is that exact draft, right? You have to assume, obviously, Lucian, Leona probably going down into the bottom lane. Swain and Lulu can be flexed around, and then obviously Hecarim probably going to make his way into the jungle. So things are solidified a little bit, but you know, if Endo was the X factor for Team Enigma Paradox coming in as a substitute, the Akuma Blades have a couple of X factors of their own here, right? I can't imagine. So this would just be a silly world, right? Where there was a time Leona jungle was popping off and kind of making its way around and just being that supportive jungle style. That is me just being a little too hopeful probably for the composition itself. But yeah, I'm excited to see where these go. And these are a couple of picks popping up that I didn't expect to see. So these guys already keeping us on our toes.
Yeah, this is really messing with me. I can't wait till we get into the actual client draft here, because there's a lot to be figured out. And I see the light for this Lulu. The thing that really puts you in sort of a question mark position is going to be who the Lulu is there for, because Lucian is not necessarily your stereotypical hyper carry that Lulu was super well with, and I feel like it might be half a pick for the Hecarim here. And Akuma Blades are showing us maybe a little bit of an unorthodox strategy. But Enigma, on the other hand, I feel like they aren't particularly vulnerable to the dive already. There's still a lot of shutdown for people like the Hecarim and the Lucian available. You need that secondary carry, and I wonder if they are looking for it to be the Hecarim, the Swain, or if it's the Lucian as a primary.
Yeah, and you can, for the most part, right, Lulu does give that little bit of a speed boost to that Hecarim, so can be looking to, like you said, supplement the Hecarim more than anything here. I think it's just an incredibly exciting composition where standing across from that, it's pretty standardized, right? Shen has been popping up across the meta as a whole, whether it be top or jungle, but just a really prioritized pick for professional play. Obviously, Senna Nautilus is just a solid duo as a whole. Kindred popping up in more recent I guess the more recent half of this season or this patch. Cassiopeia is kind of a wonky one. It's not one, again, that I was expecting to see, but still such a strong pick. And I think outside of the Kindred, because you already have that. So when I see Senna, my immediate thought is you don't have a whole lot of that sustained damage, right? Ascena attacks a little bit slower. You have to get those auto attacks in. Obviously has the attack range and the damage, but it's not the traditional marksman, right? It's not the Lucian who's just going to constantly auto attack you down in kind of like bang bang fashion. Then you put the Kindred on top of it, and you're like, okay, well, you bring that traditional marksman into the composition, and now the Cassiopeia, right? So you have so much sustained damage just throughout the fight, whether it be auto attacks or the Twin Fangs, and then also your ability to melt these objectives goes through the roof with your jungle and your mid lane picks, right? Those Twin Fangs and then just Kindred auto attacking as a whole, dragons, barons, rift heralds, whatever it may be, immediately get deleted.
And I love that you bring up objectives, because I think it's a really nice transition into us talking about what Enigma and Akuma are good at. And I think that when you talk, like you said, about those objectives, it really brings to light that Enigma, they want to be playing around them. The thing is, they don't have that much lane priority to their name early on. There's a lot of pressure from Akuma, and they seem like an early game composition until you take a look at the Hecarim. So to sort of play out the way that I would expect the game to go, I'd expect Akuma to get a lot of pressure for those early dragons, be able to take them with the Hecarim and the bot lane priority. And at the same time, Enigma, I think once you hit those even 1 to 2 item marks, that's when you start looking to take team fights, because team fights, strangely enough, are where Enigma feel most comfortable. They have the ability to peel for people like the Senna, put out the consistent damage like you mentioned with the Cassiopeia, and it's going to be picks into objectives, and it's going to be picks in actual team fights. Akuma Blades, on the other hand, I expect them to be much more about pulling Team Enigma Paradox around the map, and that's where I look to see the development of this team, because the ability to create macro pressure is something that we don't always see, even at this level of play. And being able to create side lane pressure when you really only have a Lucian, maybe Swain, that can side lane is going to be extremely difficult. But if it pays off, this is a very scary team composition.
Yeah, and I wonder if, because if you guys are just joining us, Team Enigma Paradox, they have a last minute substitute, unfortunately having to forfeit game 1 of a best of 3 series. We talked about what it can now look like if you're put in this best of 1 situation where you don't get a chance for redemption. And I wonder if this composition as a whole is trying to lean a little towards something safer, can play back a little bit, right? If you're coming at us, we have all of the tools to not only stop you from coming at us, but to do damage while it's happening, right? The frontline shred is so huge for Team Enigma. So I wonder if losing that first game because of that forfeit kind of shaped their composition into what it was, because it is incredibly safe, right? It's the long range safe healing up Senna, it's the Kindred with the Lamb's Respite, obviously Shen being able to jump in somewhere, and that Shen pick it feels like that might be the staple, or what kind of puts in a stamp in this composition for me, if Bless Express can get out on the map, right? If he's using that ultimate aggressively, helping out lanes, like you said, there's not going to be a whole lot of lane priority for Enigma early, and they're going to start to shine leaning towards those team fights in that mid to later game. So I wonder if that Shen is going to have a huge impact like that, if it's going to be the not necessarily playing defensive, but looking to make plays around the map and have that man advantage, right? Kind of working with jungle as that, or Kindred as that, like duo jungle or duo ganking.
Yeah, and I like what you bring up with the Shen, because the global presence is going to be what really brings this composition together. Kindred alone, not really enough to peel for a whole backline, but when you add Shen on top of that, there is the ability for this team comp to feel really unstoppable with the amount of sustain that they have, the amount of anti-burst almost. And I want to draw our attention very quickly, now that we've popped into the actual client draft, it looks like this is a Lulu top, and although I didn't want to say it aloud because it sounds really troll, it looks like we are going to get a Swain Leona bot lane potentially, which is extremely scary. This is a very bursty bot lane that is, it's literally a kill lane. Like it needs maybe a little bit more damage to be actually terrifying, something like a Pantheon, but this is basically a kill lane should they choose to go for it. There is still the potential to swap. We have until that 20-second mark, but this is sort of what I want to call the Akuma Blades special as we pop in. The flex picks into very, very scary team comps.
Yeah, I mean, flex pick is, it almost feels like The name of the game for these guys, right? Trying to find their identity might be their identity, keeping the enemy team on their toes as to what's going on. Because I was definitely not like, I knew Fluke had played Lucian mid, but I wasn't expecting to have this type of bottom lane, which now it is locked in, and we get to see how this one plays out. That is, I would say at the very least, the most solo queue thing that you'll probably see in the competitive League of Legends scene. That's Swain and Leona bottom lane. And right, Swain is a little weird. You throw out the never move, you can obviously pull them back in, but it's not necessarily based off of just the CC you hit, right? If somebody else is hitting some CC, you have that ability to pull somebody back in, which Nautilus should do a pretty good job of negating the engage that this bottom lane has, but there's a whole lot of it. There's a whole lot of CC. And Senna isn't the most mobile champion and doesn't probably do well in trades as a whole into the Swain and Leona. So I'm interested to see how the Team Enigma Paradox bottom lane is able to kind of handle this kind of pressure, because it is something incredibly wonky. And we get to see probably the Hecarim Lulu, right? We talked about more so Team Enigma Paradox playing through top lane, liking to get Blessed Express ahead here, but we could very well see the same exact thing from Akuma Blades. Have your aggressive, hyper pushing mid lane and bottom lane, and then Hecarim and Lulu just working hand in hand, like you had stated in the draft. The Lulu is there just to support the Hecarim.
And it's going to work out really well, especially if they choose to play towards this top side. And I think that what this flex has done is really open up the map in terms of options for Akuma Blades. Their bot lane should be very, very self-sufficient, but Hecarim all of a sudden, because of solo lane Lulu, feels so incentivized to gank really any lane but mid. And mid is the one lane where they should absolutely be winning.
And we'll have to see if they can get it done here, guys. We are going to jump into game number 1 here. Team Enigma Paradox already down 0-1 in the series. But before we do that, we do want to give a quick shout out to Kono Keyboard. If you guys are looking to take your game to the next level, it all starts with your peripherals. I think we can all agree in that. From keyboards to keycaps, mice, and more, our friends over at Kono have got you covered. Kono works with the world's best designers, inventors, and makers to bring you some of the best gaming peripherals around. Kono have been a huge supporter of us here at Upsurge, as you guys know, and have made generous contributions to our prize pools. If you need to find a new keyboard, check out the Hex Gears X1 RGB low profile Bluetooth mechanical keyboard, and you guys can use code UpsurgeGG for 7% off your first order. For more information, head on over to kono.store to check out all they have to offer. That's KONO.store. Kono, discover amazing products. Guys, we are going to jump away for a quick second, but after this short break, we'll be back on Summoner's Rift. Alrighty, guys, we are live. Game number 1 about to be underway as we jump into a pause here after our quick break. And we get to see what's going on. It looks like the ready's already pumped up in the chat, but we will see once we get back into this game. Now, I didn't take too much of a look at the loading screen just because I like to see it once we get into game, Dia, but looking across the board, I think one of the things that kind of stands out to me, you've got the Fleet footwork on the Senna, looking to stay incredibly healthy. And then across from that, you've got Phase Rush on your Cassiopeia, which is pretty standard, but this Snake Lady should have no problem chasing people down.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing that comes with that is the defensive option. Karibo is expecting to get jumped on, has the cleanse here picked up for himself, and no cleanse on the Cassiopeia. It's actually something that I often prefer to see on Cassiopeia because she is such high DPS. Because you have Indo, you can kind of get away with this, but the teleport being picked up instead is going to give her a little bit more lane pressure into somebody like Fluke. And as we're sort of talking about that and the way that the mid lane matchup is going to play out, I can't help but think of how it's going to influence Indo's pathing specifically, because we talked about how some carry, he has so many options. My question right now, my eyes are very much on this Kindred and where she's going to go in the early game, where she chooses to protect first.
Yeah, and you had talked a little bit about these teams, or I guess more so Team Enigma Paradox, not having the highest lane priority. And I think outside of hurting the lanes, that hurts Kindred the most, right? With the mark coming up, it jumps up on a Scuttle Crab unless you find one on a champion early. Then from there on out, it's either going to be Scuttle Crab, the Gromp, or the Raptor camp until you find 4 marks. And if you don't have that lane priority, as we're already seeing, Fluke doing his darndest to make sure Graham is pushed out in the mid lane. But if you don't have that priority, how do you get those marks that makes Indo this caster minion on Kindred? And the only reason I say that is because I have like 300 games played on Kindred this season. I love Kindred as a champion as a whole. So I'm interested. I think that's going to be incredibly oppressive. And I think that allows some carries to then do more carrying on this Hecarim.
Yeah, and I think that's really what you're looking for, is the ability to shut down in every single lane. Because if you look at the draft from Akuma Blades, it is all about, it's not even about winning the lane, it is about keeping your opponents out of it. Effort on the Lulu is not your late game into Shen counter pick. It is realistically this very early game pick that's going to be able to harass you out, or at least try right now. Effort is going to be working on it pretty slowly, but nonetheless, Lulu auto attacks are going to whittle you down eventually, and same thing with the side of Akuma Blades. It's not so much about Senna not being useful later, it's about the ability for Rematch and Lunar to shut him down. We might see a gank in the top side though, because Indo, he's looking to get proactive.
Yeah, no wards for Effort here as the Kindred, they make their way on up. Cameron's gonna grab us on over to the mid lane where Graham getting dangerously low here. Press the attack was used, that mounting dreaded. I mean, press the attack for both of these teams. You see how much damage it does. It's so oppressive in the mid lane. Kindred getting so much damage up top on the Lulu. If not necessarily a completely successful gank, right? You did get the flash, you don't net a kill, but you do so much damage and whittle away at those potions.
Yeah, and you get the flash out of Lulu as well, who is, like we said, not the tanky opposition to Bless Express. Getting him an advantage here means that you set him up for potentially another gank. If you get this Lulu behind, there's no point in having it on your team outside of the edge case where Hecarim gets to be empowered. But Indo, he's already thinking about wrapping back around, and Effort is not playing with the appropriate respect at the moment.
And how could you not? You look at this top lane matchup, the Shen Bless Express already up over Effort here, and there's a huge minion wave crashing. So this top lane, I mean, you said it, it's slowly starting to fall apart here. If this Lulu's not getting ahead, or at the very least staying even, it definitely just feels like another lowly-esque support on your team, as the bottom lane for a moment was in favor of Team Enigma Paradox. It has since shifted back once this Swain, once this Leona have hit that level 3. They've got each of their abilities that can be a bit more oppressive. And it looks like Endo look for something in the mid lane. Lucian can be difficult to gank. He is able to dash away and stay safe. It's just going to buy a little bit of space for Graham here.
It's uncharacteristic though that we see Indo with the one with the early priority. Instead, some carry has not been that gank threat that we expect out of a Hecarim, has opted for more of this farm style. And while we're talking about the fact that Hecarim hasn't had that much impact on the map, Indo being able to pressure this top side has resulted in absolute disaster. I do not sugarcoat my minion waves here, Tanner Metro. Effort is in a tough spot right now. It looks like it's about to get even tougher. He spots Kindred on the way up.
Yeah, a whole lot tougher. Kindred has him marked as well, so Indo, no flash on the Lulu. She's trying to trade it back there. Spirit's Refuge going to stop some auto attacks for now as Mounting Dread will find a bit of damage, and Effort should be able to walk away. I think the scariest thing about that outside of a kill is this Kindred is already sitting on 2 marks. Got the top Scuttle Crab 50-50, went in and grabbed the big Raptor and was looking for another mark. Now some carry underneath the turret. He is healthy. He is a level ahead, but maybe not a fight. He wants to pick. He has no backup, and Bless Express is going to teleport back and make sure this Hecarim doesn't go too far ahead.
And it's hard to get on top of somebody like the Kindred, especially as the melee Hecarim, but the damage is already done for that top side play. Effort, the pots get forced out of him by that gank, and now Bless Express has managed to teleport back in. The wave frozen for him previously, is ahead in XP, is ahead in HP, and is now ahead in items as well. Just the Dark Seal and the Corrupting Pop for the Lulu are not at all the lane mitigators that we had expected to see out of this champion when we talked about it earlier.
Yeah, and although the top lane feeling pretty oppressive, the gold lead is still in favor of the Akuma Blades. If you take a look just across the board, it's mostly the CS, right? The jungle and the mid lane getting the better half of things. So where Effort is falling flat, Fluke is making sure he can do his darndest to try and pick up some of that slack. And it's kind of how we expected a Lulu lane possibly to go, especially with how aggressive that Shen can be. And I'm interested to follow that Lulu build because of the Dark Seal. Could just be for early stats and then work more towards the supportive style. But I'm going to be keeping an eye as Effort has hit level 6. And although this has been a lot of our focus, that level 6 is not nearly as impactful at this point in the game, right? As Bless Express is. Once you get that Stand United, you can just leave that Lulu to do whatever, make plays around the map. The Effort's only going to be able to use that Wild Growth on himself or on a gank, and if he takes a couple more turret shots, he might need to use it on himself.
Yeah, he's playing the lane super awkwardly right now, but it's not going to matter if he can keep this alive. Looks like there's a fight in the bot lane, though, and level 6 is not hit for everybody.
Yeah, both junglers are here. That's level 6 on Bless Express. He's going to ult in. Kirbo is able to get away for now. Some carry taking so much damage. He will fall for first blood as they try to trade it back. The late teleport from Effort might be too late. Although the Effort was there, it falls a little flat. It is first blood going the way of Team Enigma Paradox, and that gold lead has been equalized.
Yeah, and that's a super awkward teleport. Very much sunken cost already for the side of Akuma Blades. They lose one in the bot lane play, not respecting the level 6 out of the Shen. That they very well should have known with Effort hitting level 6 that Shen was just right there, had an immense minion wave with him. Don't respect it, don't have the level 6s on their bot laners, and it means that they can't get on top of this cleanse Karibo. The cleanse that we talked about earlier being so important really gets justified in that play. And now it's a little bit of gold going over to the side of Team Enigma Paradox, and importantly, to this Shen who we expect to be everywhere.
Yeah, that's exactly what we talked about, right? We want to see this Shen making plays around the map, is able to head back up, still in a CS lead, so no big deal teleporting or using that ult on, especially because Effort followed. So we'll see, again, just how this Shen continues to grow his lead up top and how Effort can continue to stabilize, or if he can continue to do that. As the junglers split the map, Kirbo in a little bit of trouble. This is the aggression that we were seeing as they teleport to follow. They're trying to secure the kills here as Graham comes down now. The Senna is dead, but the mid laner is here, and Lunar just wants to go right back in. Nice dodge there on the Petrifying Gaze. Here comes the jungler, some carry, trying to carry this one out. Level 7, but he goes a little too deep, takes a turret shot, and they will trade 1 for 1. We are all tied up in kills, but that was a very awkward fight. A teleport used, and Graham might not be out of the woodworks just yet. It's not a whole lot of mana on rematch. They do force the flash out of the Cassiopeia, and they're going to get some plates on top of it all.
2 kills as well as a flash. Yes, they trade one back, but they get turret plates in the mid lane, and Akuma Blades, they make that macro run that we talked about. They pull Team Enigma Paradox around the map, and Team Enigma Paradox, as much as they lose what's close to the minimum, they're still losing. Very nicely played from Akuma Blades to be able to find that opportunity once they had hit the crucial level 6s in the bot lane that we talked about earlier.
And the recall is going to be stopped for now. We see the Senna working on, obviously building towards that Manamune, that Muramana build. That mark has been left on the Gromp for quite some time, and I would think some carry is going to pick that up. But if you can continue to leave that warded and spot out this Kindred making plays up towards this Gromp, and it looks like that's exactly what some carry wants to do, unless, take a look. Sometimes it stays a little late after you take it. But no, yeah, it looks like it's just still going to be up, and they might use that to try and track this Kindred, get some extra vision up there, and make sure that these marks are being stunted. Because at that point, again, Kindred is one of my most played champions. It feels so bad until you can get 4 marks, and things don't switch until you get 4 marks. Now that I say that, his ears were ringing. Zenith Blade going to go wide, and some carry just takes so much damage on the way in, forced to ult out, and rematch might not be as safe. It was the depth charge for the knockup in the CC, but everybody walks away from that one. Some carry, though, being the benefactor of a little bit of damage.
And he's the one that has to be finding these engages. It's not right then. I'm glad that we didn't see the fight, but what I'm worried about is what that could translate into. If this Hecarim is going to be very, very squishy, he's not going to have the backup of the Lulu, that's when engages start falling flat, when the counter engage and the counter damage of Team Enigma Paradox start being able to win you fights. We haven't actually seen a dragon picked up yet, and that's where I expect our next fight to be, is around a team that feels like they can get an advantage, preferably in the bot lane, and start up this Drake, because Akuma Blades, I think the pressure's on them to get this one going early.
Yeah, and you can see they don't have the most urgency for it, but they are aware that this dragon is going to be taken or should be taken very soon, right? That bottom half of the river is completely lit up. You see 4 control wards, another one, another just standard ward, a trinket ward inside the tri-bush there. So the bottom side of the map completely lit up. That Gromp has since been taken. Is now fighting inside the top side jungle where it is fairly dark. They will go toe-to-toe momentarily. They all come across now. Rebo's looking for what he can. Karibo taking so much damage, does not have the ult for this one. No cleanse either as it was used, and Bardo support should just get run down. There's the oppression we were talking about. It's a double kill for Lunar in this Swain now, 4-0-0. That should open things up for the Dragon here.
And that is exactly the kind of play that I was talking about. Unfortunately, some carries on the top side of the map maybe didn't expect that play to go as well as it did. It's turned into the dragon pressure, but there's no execution on this just yet. What it has turned into is a very, very scary win condition for Enigma Paradox. There's another fight here.
And Rematch is doing what he can. Endo does still have that Lamb's Respite. Can't use it, it's CC'd, but we'll be okay for now. Gonna hang on to that ultimate for a later date as Bless Express up top, getting some damage down onto Effort here, who, again, it's this Lulu, not gonna do a whole lot of damage, which really allows this Shen to build however he wants, right? You see the team in his inventory, a little bit of magic resistance just because it does help, but you can't expect this Lulu to get too far ahead when it comes to damage. Now, some carry finally making his presence known around this dragon. Another control ward will go down, so Team Enigma Paradox not looking to give that one up just yet. But like you said, no real urgency to grab this dragon, which can be kind of strange. Akuma Blades, they are in a pretty good spot, right? Up 3,000 gold or just shy of 3,000 gold. They don't necessarily have to pick that up, but if you give those away at the very least, that gold lead starts to mean less once those resistances, the extra damage, the alt CD, whatever dragons we may see, those start going the way of Team Enigma Paradox, and that gold lead starts to mean less and less. So I'm interested to see if they do decide to put some priority down there. Rift Herald, another objective. We have seen no action around that Rift Herald. Turret plates are about to fall. Neither team really looking to make plays. And going back to the draft, right? We talked about Team Enigma Paradox wanting to just survive as much as they can and look for later team fighting, which it makes sense as to why they're not going for these objectives. But why are Akuma Blades not going? As finally they make an attempt, but everybody's alive, everybody's going to make their way down, and we'll see if this can be stopped.
Yeah, Effort's got a nice back, though. He's going to have the ability to join the fight with a full buy there. Just got the Athenes for himself. It looks like it's going to be no contest. Yeah, Indo, he's looking a little bit awkward there. That's sort of the gray area between no contest and contest, is when your jungler says, oh no, I really want this, and nobody else thinks it's a good idea. It might even turn into more.
Yes, looking like more. Nice flash though from Bardo. He pulls rematch underneath the turret, and they're looking for the shutdown on the Leona. Goes golden to stay alive for a moment longer, and rematch actually makes it out, and they're looking to turn around the Akuma Blades. They want to take everything here. Kirbo with a nice snipe is able to pick up one for himself. Lunar still alive, not enough damage. The Ignite is ticking, and rematch will find the kill. So not only did he not die, he made it out alive and found a kill with the Ignite on this Leona, and they take first brick.
And even off of a awkward play from the side of Akuma Blades, that Demonic Ascension with 4 kills and a Haunting Guise along with the Rod of Ages, you cannot disrespect the amount of damage that this Swain is going to be putting out, not just in the AoE initially, but in the explosion that comes after. Looking very, very nice is this Swain, has himself at 5-0 right now, and like I said, potential win condition has been put on the board here. We talked about in the draft Akuma Blade's ability to overwhelm Team Enigma's sustain if they can find advantages, find these small gold leads in the side lane, especially onto the bruisers. Swain is one such bruiser, some carry is another, and some carry is behind, but Swain not nearly as much, and they've got a dragon under their belt as well.
Yeah, nice little bump in the damage already, stacking with that gold lead that they have accrued for themselves. Like you said, that Swain, 550 gold on his head, so sitting pretty with a bounty as Effort goes right back into the top lane, trying to find some damage on Bless Express. And although it's been quiet for Effort, he's had a questionable teleport. Bless Express really hasn't been able to match. He's trying to do what he can, but Akuma Blades, they really just seem to be coming out on top in just about every single trade. As now we get to see Shelly started up that Rift Herald. Maybe just a dance here. I'm not too sure how much they want to commit on this. Actually, a lot of damage already down. Indo goes in rematch, so he does want to fight. The teleports are coming through. Indo just gets deleted. The no lambs are spiking. He will go down, and Lunar now dominating on this Swain. He flashes forward for the double kill, and you just can't stop him from 5-0-1 to 7-0-2 on this Swain ADC.
And a beautiful bait out of Akuma Blades. They know they want to fight. There's no intention of just taking the Rift Herald and walking away. They want to bait Enigma Paradox in. And we see the Kindred. She walks right into the trap. Lunar, he wraps around the pit, and suddenly it is just this one-man army, this general walking at you, and you've got no choice, because you can either walk forward into 3 embers or walk backwards into what was a 5-0 Swain, now a 7-0 Swain, who seems unkillable.
Yeah, 1,300 gold in the pocket. I would imagine he goes back and finishes those Sorcerer Shoes for some extra magic penetration. And yeah, unkillable, I think, is the best way to describe it right now. Is some carry doing his best to try and counter jungle on the way out. He does get chased away by 3, but when you look at the build across the board, the game, we're about 18 minutes in. Rift Herald has finally been taken. 1 dragon has been taken. The items are starting to come through for Team Enigma Paradox, but I think the biggest one that we look at, outside of the huge Swain, is this guy's going to heal so much, and there's 0 healing reduction. You also have to worry about the Hecarim, right? Kind of being that nuisance healing inside of his own abilities. So now you're in a spot where you need to build because you need to start getting damage for your team fights, but you also need some Grievous Wounds. So I'm interested to see who's going to be the first to kind of take that step towards trying to mitigate what this Swain is doing to your team. And now it seems it's a very tall order. And again, if you are just joining us, Team Enigma Paradox, they're down 0-1 in the series. Although this is just the first game, you guys didn't miss a game. You didn't show up late. They unfortunately had to forfeit early. or forfeit game 1 because of their jungle substitution in Indo, and really put them on the back foot. This is very, very oppressive as a game and as a series thus far. The Kindred still working on getting towards 4 stacks. We know that because the mark is still on the Scuttle Crab. Top lane now going to get some pressure. Effort hasn't gotten enough love this game, says some carries, so they put down the Rift Herald, and Bardo in trouble. His Bard was banned and his Nautilus is just not up for the task. Now Legendary is this Swain at 8-0-2. Top lane turret goes down. A kill on the bottom side of the Akuma Blades. They're just everywhere.
Yeah, it's around this mid-game mark that Akuma Blades have really exploded onto the map. It does not help. The Swain is absolutely massive right now, and this Dragon being started up, fortunately, has been started up super late. Akuma Blades are not going to have that snowball potential they could otherwise have had. Their early game mistakes are costing them, but their mid-game is going to be just strong enough to be able to mitigate all of that.
And I mean, we've seen how this plays out. Right around the Dragon Pit, Indo again being the only one to really pull the trigger on stepping forward. Unfortunately, gets run down by Lunar, and the rest of the team follows, and that Lamb's respite is just not enough to keep him up. It's another death for Lamb and Wolf, and it's just shy of a 10,000 gold lead here for the Akuma Blades as they start to pressure now both the mid and bottom lanes.
And I'm looking at this Swain, and I know that in his lore, he's supposed to be this very smart guy. He's supposed to be able to, you know, be really outplaying you on a macro sense. But now that I'm looking at the actual game state, I don't think that there's ever going to be a chance for anybody to feel outplayed by Swain, because he's so fed at this point. You're just going to, like, we've all been in a game against a fed Swain where you go, what do I even do against this? I can't attack it. I can't run away from it. That's exactly what Lunar is looking like right now. And I'm sorry, but we're not going to see a champion fantasy fulfilled today. This guy is running over the game.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'm looking a little bit towards Graham on this Cassiopeia as somebody who could maybe challenge, but that's not going to be until incredibly later in the game, right? Needs some healing reduction. We have yet to see that, whether it be a Bramble Vest, the Executioner's Calling. I know that the Morellonomicon is not one that a lot of people or a lot of analysts like as a whole, and unfortunately, with the time that you need to buy, Dia, these guys, they don't have a whole lot of time. Baron's been started out by the Akuma Blades, and they actually look to turn for a fight. Bardo gets knocked back into 5. Is going to stay alive for now. Graham on the outside. The ult not going to land on the stuns, but does find some slows. Some carry going to be taken down. Dangerous low. Effort will fall as well. It's 2 kills going the way of Team Enigma Paradox, but 2 in return, and Lunar is just full health. The rest of the team is there to pick the kills up, while the Swain will grab your attention. Your team will fall. It's a 4-for-2 in favor of Akuma Blades as they set their eyes back on the Baron.
And so much of the sustain from Team Enigma Paradox is in being able to stand together, is in being able to be grouped up. Lunar, he denies that with the press of a button. You mentioned it. At the end of that fight, he's full health because Karimo knows as well as we all do that you cannot walk through this, man. Graham is trying to 1v3 on the side. He gets at least a little bit of support, but the rest of the team just can't join, and it becomes an unfair fight, turning into a Baron now for the side of Akuma Blades, puts them that much further ahead as they crest the 10k gold mark.
Yeah, they were walking up that mountain, hiking up that mountain. Now they have peaked here just shy of 11,000, or just over 11,000. No, 10,000. Okay, caster math. Now, I always tell myself I can do this. I just can't do it, and I got to be humbled in the doing math on the desk here. So like you said, 10,000 gold up, just over 10 kills up, a couple of turrets. It hasn't necessarily been those turret objectives. A lot of the times you will see that, but it's the kills. It's the CS differential, right? Mid lane, 50 CS, bot lane, 20 CS. Even top lane now has a lead, and the jungle. So across the board, Akuma Blades have just come in so incredibly dominant. And I think this is what we were expecting to see. Maybe not a one-sided victory like this, but with both these teams being undefeated, one of them had to be incredibly strong, and we're seeing exactly who it is here.
Yeah, and I really like the point that you brought up earlier as well, is that maybe the style of Akuma Blades is going to be this no style. It's going to be this neutral, you don't know where we're going until it's all said and done. Right now it's looking like it's deadly as Lunar's got another great demonic ascension.
Yeah, and it's one falls, you see the blue health bars until you don't, and if you blink, you missed it, because Bless Express, the last remaining member, only one falling, which was kind of the tail of the tape, right? That fight didn't even necessarily need a play-by-play because we've seen it played out over and over and over again. Some carry jumps in, takes a whole brunt of the damage, and he's okay to die on this Hecarim because he knows he's got his team behind him. And we thought that this Lulu would be supporting that Hecarim, but now you just got to put your eggs in the Swain basket here, in that lunar basket, as it does seem to be a lunar eclipse dimming out the light of Team Enigma Paradox's Bardo support will go down. The Nexus turrets are under fire, but members have since respawned. Graham gonna step forward momentarily, and they actually want to try and bite off some here as they're trying to get to the base. Lunar actually gonna get shut down, and that is a huge shutdown over to the Cassiopeia.
Very large overextension from Akuma Blades. They stay a little bit too long, greeting for Bardo support, and give over that 1,000 gold shutdown. That's really, really huge in a game where we talked about being 10k gold behind. You've now given over a tenth of that. Granted, it is extended. It is now even scarier, but the comeback story is given a little bit of fuel. It's still very, very unlikely. And I think that what we see right now from Team Enigma Paradox is more telling about the way that they choose to operate together from now on. I like what we've been seeing because this is an early team, and we question maybe the way in which early teams are able to coordinate, are able to stay together. I still see them making very controlled plays. They're not inting in to try and find these 1 in a million chances. They take the overextension, and as much as it hurts, that might be the best they're going to get this game.
Yeah, now you have to pick your battles if you are Team Enigma Paradox, which I thought would be more of a tongue twister coming into this one, but it seems to just roll off nicely as the Akuma Blades. These guys, the Summoner's Rift is their oyster. These guys can do literally whatever they want in the same exact fashion. Some carry gonna lead the charge with Lunar doing what he can on the back line. Now almost full build on this Swain, just one item shy of that. As a nice root comes out, some damage to follow, but will easily be healed up as they push in towards this inhibitor turret on the top side. We'll see if Team Enigma Paradox can defend. Bless Express taking a little bit of damage, and Kirabo just gonna grab up some souls. You just have to buy some time. You have to band-aid this bleeding for now if you are TEP, because you do have win conditions, right? We've yet to see healing reduction as some carry gets caught out. Maybe a little too early. They're going to go in on top of it. Bardo support is there, but it's the onslaught of shadows to get away for now. Trying to do his best to carry on the backside, but Indo taking digital. He flashes forward. The Lamb's Respite will keep everybody alive, but who will come out on top on the backside? Lunar has used that demonic ascent, and it's going to be Akuma Blades taking everybody down. Kirabo makes it out, but only barely, as it's a 4-for-0 in favor of the Akuma Blades, and they've set their eyes on the Nexus. Senna is not enough to defend the push against 5, and unfortunately, as quickly as it started, it has ended for Team Enigma Paradox. Somebody's O has got to go, and it is theirs today.
Oh, and you cannot start that fight, and it feels so bad because you're watching your base be destroyed, but as soon as the fight starts, you see Lunar pop the ultimate, and it's over before the rest of the fight can go on. You cannot walk through Demonic Ascension, and that's half of the damage that we saw be dealt in it. I want to take over the damage charts very quickly, because if we take a look at it, he more than doubled every single member of Team Enigma Paradox's damage. The man was popping off this game, and it was off the back of what was already a very awkward play in the bot lane that turned into Shen doesn't have ult, Shen doesn't have teleport, it doesn't matter now, we can run at you and we have the burst. That's where this all started for Team Akuma Blades, and they take that, they nurture Lunar like a little bird egg. They give him life, and he pays it back in spades.
Yeah, I mean, in spades, this guy had a phenomenal game. Like you said, those damage charts through the roof. But even if the Swain didn't have that strong of a game, right? The Lucian, who seemed fairly quiet, still doing more damage than anybody on that Team Enigma Paradox team. And going back to that play in the bottom lane, it seemed like that was the light at the start of the tunnel for TEP. These guys, they play with their Shen. They're able to get it done. Shen was still ahead, But at the end of the day, that top lane matchup, you could completely erase those guys, right? The Lulu and the Shen, I think, had minor impact on this game. And I also want to give some love over to Rematch. This guy on the Leona was so sick and enabled Lunar in the best way possible, right? The CC from the Leona allowing the Swain to also follow up with that never move pull, and then constantly just in and out of fights, playing them nearly perfectly in order for Lunar to get as head as he did. So huge hats off to him. And I like that. I like the Akuma Blades. We already said it, but their style is, they don't have a style. They just throw whatever they can at the wall and see what sticks. And the Swain definitely stuck in this game. And I like that they can take a back seat, right? Anybody on this team is okay with supporting whoever is ahead. If they find a lead, they just run with it. And they did exactly that with Lunar.
Yeah, and it's something that we didn't expect, but as you say, I think that the answer today really was exactly that, no style. And it's scary, and it's something that other teams in this group are going to have to look out for. Baron is looking very, very scary right now because both these teams very strong. I didn't walk away from this going Team Enigma Paradox trolled in any way. They looked absolutely fine. They just weren't able to stall out to that late game because of how crazy Swain was. He did 30,000 damage in 27 minutes. That's the most. I'm shocked. There was more thousands of damage just by a single champion than there was minutes in the game. It was absolutely insane. And I look forward to seeing both these teams go on and see if somebody can find an answer to the unpredictability that Akuma Blades have posed to us as a question today.
Yeah, their unpredictability is just taking the words right out of our mouths. We're slipping over our words because of the way that they played and how strong they looked. And I was also looking at individual skill, right? The individual skill level of the teams, and I think, or the players rather, and I think Team Enigma Paradox were coming in with a stronger technical team, but to be able to play like that, like I said, for the Akuma Blades, incredible. Somebody's had to go, and that was Team Enigma Paradox. But we also have to take a look, before we close things out, at what today was, right? It was a game one forfeit, and you don't have a chance at redemption in a situation like this. You're down one game, you lose the first game of the day, and you get sent home, and it puts you, again, in that weird paradox of, well, this was basically just a best of one, and now we have a loss on our record. So I'm interested to see not only how Team Enigma Paradox battle back from this defeat, but if this is just going to be a fluke from them, not getting to see how they play off of their back foot. It means a lot to me personally, right? When you go down in a game or in a game in a series and you can come back and fight for a reverse sweep, or at least show up a fight in game number two. And unfortunately, they were stripped of that today. So hopefully they learn from this. They can get those substitute issues out of the way a little bit earlier next time, so they're not having to forfeit, because I think we could have had a really strong series on our hands.
Yeah, and I think that this is a very strong team to support you. Graham is somebody that previously I looked at as a pillar of the team, and I thought that he was really performing. There were a few missed opportunities across the map, but they're opportunities that really, they do pass you by. And maybe the answer is, if you do get a read on Akuma Blades, you're able to do something about their sort of odd styles. But because in a best of one, it is where I predicted that they would shine coming into today. Because of that sort of X factor, we don't get to see that, and it plays into both of their hands. Team Enigma Paradox, they had the same thing last week. Somebody forfeited, they won the game, and that was it. It's going to happen throughout the season, and being able to be a champion in these best of ones is equally a skill when you're looking at the rules that you're playing within.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how they battle back. Now, as I said, only one game today because of the unfortunate substitute there last minute. But before we do close things out, Dia, is there anything that you would like to say? Any shout outs for yourself, or just based off of what we saw today, what we're expecting maybe for the Upsurge Minor League?
I think right now, shout out to you and Caster Audio, because I hadn't had the chance to work with you guys before. I was very excited. And I think right now, shout out to Akuma Blades. And not because I think that they did something insane, but because I think that they've given us something new. And I really look forward to the way that this will develop the league.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see how things now pan out as we go across the board. And again, a shout out to you, Dia, for being the brains alongside the I want to say the brawn, but I don't really. There's not a whole lot of strength in shoutcasting. But thank you for being the brains alongside me. Caster Audio, obviously making things run smoothly in the background as our producer. A huge shout out to Upsurge as a whole for giving us not only a platform but these players as well, and Kono Keyboard and UEA, the Unified Esports Association, for being the sponsors of the stream. Now, with that being said, guys, we are wrapping up the day. Akuma Blades, they go 3-0 now, coming out of week 3, so they are still undefeated. And unfortunately, Team Enigma Paradox fall down with their first loss, but we'll see how they battle back. Now, we're not done. There's more Upsurge action as far as the season goes, so make sure you guys are staying tuned. Make sure you guys are following social medias and Twitch across the board, and we'll see you guys in the next one.